So the other day I was eating takeaway Chinese food and watching my favorite episode of The Biggest Loser, and this got me thinking, man, we are lucky we live in a time where we don't have to worry about weight gain anymore, as I popped a Lexapro and injected myself with my third dose of Ozempic for the day. I began to enter my daily hypoglycemic state, and just at that moment, the algorithm on my fridge autoplayed this video.
The purpose of cow's milk is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 400-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid, and women eat it, and it stimulates their tissues, and it gives women breast lumps. It makes the uterus get big, and they get fibroids, and they bleed, and they get hysterectomies, and they need mammograms, and gives guys man boobs.
This got me thinking, maybe this guy is right. Think about it. I never drink water and get sunlight because they turn a tiny seed into a 10,000-pound tree, so why would I expose myself to those products? So if I wanted to get fit, maybe I should try these plant-based diets. It sounds like women should really jump on these so they don't need to get hysterectomies anymore. I'm not a woman, so I'm mostly okay, but at least it might help me get rid of my man boobs. Now, a lot of people would be overwhelmed by a change in diet, but my favorite food is chewing tobacco, so I'm already relatively plant-based myself, so it shouldn't be too hard. The question really becomes, is it worth it? So I quickly used my fridge to subscribe to my favorite YouTube channel and then started digging. I always thought that plant-based people look like this. But to be honest, after I started looking it up, I learned that they actually look more like this, which is quite promising. The deeper I went though, the more I realized, wow, if you thought anti-Semitism was on the rise, you should really get in on the plant-based hate going around. Apart from the immediate drama though, the internet seemed pretty cluttered on which diet is better. There are people who are saying without meat we would die. Then other people are like humans are physiologically herbivores. And the more you look, the more it starts to spiral, and it just gets weirder and weirder. Some people are only eating raw meat, and to compete with that on the other side of the spectrum, people have become what's called raw vegans. And to be honest, everyone just seemed really angry. The meat people hate the plant people, and the plant people hate the meat people. And I was slowly getting angrier and angrier, becoming radicalized towards one side, and was on the verge of taking up arms, but realized that I began to completely lose sight of what I was doing in the first place. So I stopped, paused for a second, decided to do my breathing exercises, took a hit of my pipe and thought, why am I listening to these random people making random content? What credentials do they really have? I decided to pivot. Surely the fittest people in the world should be who we look at to make decisions. They have the best dietitians, coaches, and doctors, and they also have measurable metrics to show how well they perform. So what does Lewis Hamilton, Venus Williams, Serena Williams, and Kyrie Irving have in common? Well, there are three things actually. They're all plant-based, well, mostly plant-based. They're all highly successful in their respective sports, and they are all black. I thought I might get in trouble for lack of diversity, so here are some other iconic plant-based athletes. And here is a Mexican just to tick that box off. So these guys are actually split into two subgroups. There's the vegans, and then there are the plant-based athletes. So what's the difference, you ask? Well, vegans not only do it for the claimed athletic performance benefits, but also for a mix of other reasons like animal rights and saving the environment. And what's plant-based? Well, Novak explains it pretty well. He says he dislikes the term vegan due to potential misinterpretations, preferring plant-based to focus on the benefits of the food itself rather than focusing on the vegan lifestyle. What this essentially means is that he's a big supporter of animals being used and abused for human consumption and entertainment, and especially for medical purposes to ensure that vaccinations are safe for all of us. And that's pretty much how this group is split. The key takeaway here though is that all of these athletes noted significant increases in energy levels, better recovery, reduced inflammation, and a better mental state. Now this is great. It's getting me really excited about going plant-based. I always get inflamed playing sports, so it's nice to know that if I go plant-based, I can potentially be less inflamed and still be bad at sports. But then there's this group of athletes. All these guys were either plant-based or tried plant-based for a period of time and claimed that it reduced their energy levels, slowed down recovery, made them lose weight, and they felt like they were losing power. This is interesting because they say it's having the opposite effect of what the plant-based athletes are saying. Some of these guys are a bit loopy though, so we got to keep that in mind. Then there's the last core group. These guys are just all the athletes who eat a varied, healthy diet. And to be honest, for every one plant-based athlete, there are heaps of arguably equally successful non-plant-based athletes. But to be fair, the plant-based stuff hasn't been around as long, so they haven't had as much time to prove themselves. So now I'm just sitting here confused again. I thought it's time to get a nice, clear, direct answer on this. So I decided to take it up a level and consult science. They invented ultra-processed foods, deep frying machines, and the highly accurate food pyramid, so they must have worked this out. I started reading, and man was this overwhelming. There are so many studies and outcomes and conflicting opinions that I was pretty close to just jumping back onto Instagram, as it seemed to almost make more sense there. But I'll try and summarize this as best I can. Basically, I think all the key information can be described in about 4 groups. There are a bunch of studies where a randomized group of people were tested comparing plant-based diets to omnivorous diets. They found that plant-based people had reduced cholesterol, better blood sugar, and better body weight control. I guess that's a good thing, but I'm not here for blood sugar and cholesterol. I'm only here for gains. When it comes to muscle building, there's a study that tracked muscle gain across 12 weeks between the people on omnivorous and plant-based diets. They found both groups gained strength and muscle to a similar amount. This finding is backed up by these other studies, which are all just saying that plant-based diets are basically impactless on muscle gain. So I guess that's not really a good thing, but it's also not a bad thing. It's just saying your gains are good either way. Then there's a whole group of studies that talk about the dangers of plant-based diets if not planned well, saying you'll be low in vitamin D, calcium, zinc, and all sorts of things. So I'm glad that my current well-planned omnivorous diet, primarily made up of instant meals, alcohol, and antidepressants, means that I have all my baseline nutrients covered. The last group of studies are an interesting one. These guys are basically saying that people on plant-based diets have lower bone densities, so higher fracture rates. But the main outcomes are that people felt fatigued, lightheaded, weak, and interestingly, on a physiological note, they were just sad about the food they were missing out on. So what does this all tell us? Essentially, if you go plant-based, you might feel better, your gains won't really be any different, you might break a bone, you might feel worse, you'll probably be healthier, but you'll also probably be sad. Thanks, science. Anyways, one thing always stood out to me throughout all my research. Everyone online kept saying that gorillas are jacked, and they only eat plants, and apparently we come from monkeys, so I decided to go to the zoo and check out the plant-based diet in action for myself. So yeah, this guy was pretty jacked, but to be honest, all he did was eat leaves, sleep, and run around. And that aligns pretty well with the whole eat, sleep, exercise, repeat combination. If I had the time and money for that, I think I'd get pretty fit, but unfortunately I have work and anxiety, and I'm not really sure anymore what I proved by coming here. Anyways, I finished my beer and ended up falling into the enclosure. So it's a good thing gorillas are plant-based, so at least I know I wasn't going to get eaten. Unfortunately, they had to shoot the gorilla to save me, which is pretty rough for me afterwards. Anyways, I headed home and now I'm sitting here processing all this information. I think what this is all saying is that a plant-based diet isn't guaranteed to lead to better performance, but rather it tells us that if you go on a plant-based diet, you aren't at a disadvantage. You can still make everything work and you can still be a world champion if you feel like it. It sounds to me like a diet that just works for some people and not for others. Kind of like when I eat something, I sometimes feel sick, but other people don't, and vice versa. So I guess the best way to find out is just to give it a go, and hopefully I don't get lynched in the process. Anyways, I gotta get to work tomorrow, so sorry for wasting your time, folks. But remember, boys and girls, to eat healthy, don't hurt animals, and subscribe. I promise it's good for you. Catch you later, friends.